Buffering. Hi, everybody. Tonia Reeves, Australia's Cowgirl Medium, coming at you today for Animal Dreaming Publishing. And we have got the amazing Lena, and is it Tonia Matheas?
Yeah. Matheas,
Yeah, because I was looking at that going, I'm Tonia, and it's with an I. So similar letters in the name. So welcome on board, Lena. I have your cards that you sent through for me, and these are amazing. So I was really excited today to be able to have you on and to have you share the journey of these cards, because you can feel the energy within them and the power in those messages. And I'm just excited to hear how they came about and your story on them, because you can certainly, when you get your hands on them, you can definitely feel the energy that's connected to them. So welcome today, and please share your journey and how your beautiful cards came about, because I know this is going to be an amazing show just with your information.
Thanks, Tonia. Lovely to meet you, and lovely to get the opportunity to share. My cards came about over a long period of time. They were something that started, I suppose, as a healing process for me. It's nice to have the hindsight, to go back and look at how they came about. It was one of those things. They took about 17 years in the making, and they're still sort of, I suppose, evolving for me, and the connection that I've got with them, and sharing them with other people. They're pretty much based on life experience, and they sort of come from a place of, I suppose, self-acceptance, self-worth, coming from a place of compassion, trying to sort of find an understanding, and going inwardly and discovering that in order to be like your authentic self, you really do need to know who you are, and where you're going, where you're heading. And that's the big question we're all asking. But what I actually found was it was a process. It was a process that happened to me over that time frame, where I'd gone through, I suppose, like a lot of us, a dark night of the soul. There was incidents that sort of happened in my life. I'd gone through a car accident myself, and it was taking me a long time to recover. And I was looking for ways of having something positive to work with, rather than just relying on medicines. And I was lucky enough to have, at the time, a GP that was open to me working with other alternative aspects, as well as the medications that I was on. And that included like psychologists and colour therapy and a variety of things like that. And it sort of led me then looking to other inspirational authors like Louise Hay and others that had that message they were sending. And so one of the processes that I went through was I started to write down and journal what was going on. So that was the beginning of the process. It sort of helped me get through, because a few more things sort of happened. They come in threes. So there's a few more things. Yeah, at the same time, I had sort of a relationship that was on the rocks, and it got quite toxic, and that sort of exacerbated everything else in my world that was going on. So that was the second rug. And then, unfortunately, a few years later, the third rug was my mum being diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And that was probably like something that really then sort of took me aback, and but also propelled me forward into looking at how to go about dealing with all of these things, and being there for my mum as well in some sort of way. Yeah, so in a nutshell, about 17 years worth of journaling then started just pouring through. I went and did a Reiki class. I had done the Angel Intuitive with Doreen Virtue, and things just started rolling out, and on paper, and at the same time rolling out on canvas, because it seemed to be the right time to do the things that I loved doing when I was a lot younger, that I had put aside and not touched, and was finding I needed that balance.
That's amazing. So you went back to the art. So you'd done that when you were younger. Is that's what we were having a chat about before?
Yeah, so interestingly, I've always drawn. There's 3 things that I discovered in my life that I've been doing since I was a kid, and when I say a kid, from the age of 5, that's teaching, storytelling, and painting, and the storytelling's linked in with my writing. So I've always done that. At 5 years of age, I had my own blackboard. I had my own classroom in my backyard. The neighbours would come across. I had my own coloured chalk, and I'd be teaching them things using the blackboard. That was the first thing. The art, the art, whenever, because I was a really shy little girl, so whenever we went visiting anywhere to the family or friends, I always had my colouring book, my colour pencils, and I'd always be sitting in the background somewhere. If I wasn't reading Enid Blyton and the Enchanted Forest, I was drawing in my art book and trying to make sure I was going between the lines. That's the Virgo aspect in me, right? I was trying to get better as I was. And then the other thing was the writing. Like I've discovered recently, after, because I was in business, and then I sold my business about 7 or 8 years ago, and that gave me the opportunity when I moved seaside to actually work on the cards a bit further, because I had them in like their early stages on Photoshop. And I discovered, as I was unpacking all my old stories that I'd written when I was maybe in grade 4 or something, and they were all these um, enchanted wood type stories, with little characters being lost and being found in the woods, and which was really interesting, because I was obviously tapping into higher self and writing these stories as well, and totally forgotten about them. And so they were the things I started to tap into because they were familiar. So the last time I painted or drew anything really was like year 10. So I was probably 15 or 16. And at the stage when I was going through school, at that stage, it wasn't something you took on to study because there was no career. It was, and you basically finished at year 10 at that stage if you were female. And the only options were like being a bank teller or a teacher or a nurse. But my family always encouraged me to keep going. So I was lucky enough to study art at uni and do the art history, but I never had a folio because I gave that up at year 10 because I was sort of ordinary at my art, because I was trying to copy everybody else rather than myself. And so I gave it away till about 2001 or something like that. Took it up, and this was one of the first paintings that I did that I've used on the front of the deck.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Absolutely love that.
Thank you.
And it really speaks to you. Like, it's like, oh, I really connected with that picture.
Yeah, well, there's a bit of symbology in it. If you look at the actual artwork, I'll show you the whole. If it's all right, I'll show you the painting, because it shows you the whole piece. I don't know if it'll come across, but that's the whole painting there.
Beautiful.
So you can see there's sort of like there's other little hearts and things on the. Oh, try and get on screen. On this side, that side, yeah, that side.
Yep.
There's other sort of hearts and
yes,
evolution of hearts and things that are coming, but also some little, I'm going the right way, little embryonic shapes and things down along the main heart. And in the middle, if you look closely, I don't know if people have picked it up, but there's actually like 3 couples that are 3 or 4 couples that are sort of entwining themselves. And to me, that symbolizes past lives as well as current lives of soulmates coming together, but also of your own divine feminine and divine masculine coming together within yourself. And that's part of the story in the cards. But also the other colours and symbols that are in there, like the flowers and the green. I don't know if you can see the colours clearly. The greens and the mauves and the silver, and it's almost like, if I can pull it up in the right direction, it's kind of hard. But the bottom of that is like a bridal trail.
Oh, wow.
In silver, and then down the bottom on that side, there's a little embryo of growth.
Wow.
So there's a lot of movement and a lot of growth, and a lot of healing. Like the green's very much about healing. So there's a lot of symbology in the colours and in the artwork that actually came out in the story behind the I suppose, each card and the message. And that to me was what was happening to me at the same time. So while I'm painting the artwork, what I was actually feeling was this great healing over my heart, because there was a lot of anger, a lot of grieving, a lot of sadness, a lot of bitterness, a lot of stuff that from those experiences that I'd gone through was still sitting there in a really heavy weight. And so I'd really closed the heart chakra. I'd sort of put 3 or 4 layers of brickwork. And I decided, because I was a teacher for 11 years, and that was all happening at the tail end of my teaching. And I found by doing all the stuff that I was doing, like meditation, and I was doing yoga, and I'd done my Reiki 1, that I was actually finding a different space and a different way of operating that was helping for me. And I took that into the classroom the last couple of years, and that was actually amazing how it changed my teaching style. But then I decided that I was still in a toxic environment and I needed to leave it, and actually leave where I was living and have a total change. And I took a leap of faith and bought a business that was in a city and moved to inner city, knew no one, didn't know what I was going to do, hadn't run a business before apart from helping my dad at his market stalls. And yeah, so for 7 years, I'd sort of had these bricks up in front of me in heart space, didn't trust anybody, male or female at that stage. I only trusted what I knew and what I had control over. And it was in that space that I actually had this journey of healing. And that became my little stage. And as I was saying to you a little earlier, became my space where I created some workshops down the track that evolved from the path that I took with using all the inspirational cards and books that I was reading at the time, spiritual books and so forth, and offered them out, and then created some workshops which allowed me to grow and to connect with spirit and to actually trust what I was doing. And what I did to sort of feel comfortable was I started taking my paintings into my workshops as a focus for meditation at the beginning of each meditation. And then because I was finishing late at night, because this was all happening after I'd had a day in the shop till about 6 or 6:30, and then we'd have the workshops from about 7 to about 11. Sometimes I'd leave my paintings behind and just park them somewhere in the shop, and people started to see them and started to comment about energies they were feeling from them. So that sort of started to make me think about doing something with them. So I don't know if I answered the original question, but that's.
Well, I'm just loving hearing about your journey, and it's so fascinating because, like, even with us having a quick chat before coming on today about, you were saying, you know, that there was a skeptic side to you, and yes, how almost like you kept having that nudge and you kept getting all the signs, and I love you sharing that story because I feel many can relate. And yes, maybe haven't, you know, have had those nudges, but still haven't sure quite stepped into it. Whereas you're sharing that this is what can happen when you listen to those signs that we all get to guide us on our way. But it's about taking notice, isn't it, to follow that?
It is very, very much so. And I think I was really lucky to meet a lot of people at the time when I was sort of in the space in my store that were very encouraging and very understanding, and the whole area sort of embraced me as part of the community, because I was there for a long time. I was there for 17 years. So over that time, I actually became one of everybody's family, and I saw them sort of from almost not conception, but, you know, like from I saw their birth and I saw them grow up, and a lot of people in the community would come in and we'd have conversations, and it was funny because I'd say to them, they'd say to me, actually, I came in for a card because it was a card and bookshop, and it evolved, and I added the spiritual side to it because it was what was feeding my soul. And then what I discovered was, I think I mentioned to you before, I came out of the spiritual closet, and then I discovered 1 in 3 people were actually somehow spiritually connected. Either they were psychics, or they practiced Reiki, or they were psychologists that needed something else as a tool that they could use for their their work. And so I was talking to them about the oracle cards and the books that I'd read and the meditation CDs and books that they could use for children and a variety of things like that. And I was getting inspired, and I was getting confirmation from them that things that I was saying, and sometimes I wasn't really aware of what I was saying, because it seemed what was happening was I was connecting to higher self. I'd built up the energy in my store. This is what I discovered, to such a high vibration within there that I felt comfortable to be myself, my authentic self. So that skeptic that was there of like, why would anybody listen to me, and how come I've got something to say, and why would they listen to my direction or my guidance, about books that are options or directions that are, come to me through maybe choosing a card from a deck at the time, or doing a bit of bibliomancy, opening a book at a page and saying, this is relevant to you because it's opened and we're both sharing it, or sending them home with one of my bookmarks, like the shop bookmarks, marking a page in a book and saying, there's a message here. When you get home, have a look at it and you might resonate. And then getting a phone call, a couple of hours down the track saying, my God, you were spot on what you were saying and what it says in the book. How did you know? This is really relevant. It might have been a book about anatomy and it had to do with kidneys, and this person had gone, it was really bizarre how it was working. So daily I was getting confirmation that there was a little bit of something special happening, and that my pathway had started. And that I'd actually taken the leap of faith, and that something was changing for me, and paying attention. And the nudge kept coming with me. The painting was up in my shop, and people kept saying, oh, that's really lovely. It really gives me a calming feeling. It really speaks to me, without really seeing shapes, without really seeing a story, without really seeing any of that. And so when I got a young girl, a casual working for me, that knew how to operate the computer a lot better than I did, when I had her on and there was opportunity, I asked her to sort of work with the Photoshop and try and put up some templates for me so we could see what we could do with doing something with the painting, with the images, because I felt I needed to do something. And so she helped me put up some templates. And long after she'd gone, I'd sort of started while she was there with putting up a few ideas, this, that, and the other. And over a period, it might have been the next sort of 7, 8, 10 years, when I had a minute, I'd go back in and I'd actually add some verse. And I had hundreds of little verses that I've extracted at that stage from my journal that I had been writing in, and just really downloading everything that was just coming to me. And my best time for writing is probably late at night, or once I wake up. And it seems what I've discovered is that I'm still in that sleepy stage where I'm just about to go to sleep, or just about to really wake up. And I find I don't get in my head about connecting with my higher self or with spirit. So if I ask a question and start writing, in amongst it all, where it might be my thoughts, what I get is also a lot of guidance and a lot of direction. And that was really something I wasn't aware of until I went back to my journals to see what was there, and started to sort of underline pieces that I thought, where did that come from? I haven't written that. That sounds like it's come from, Doreen Virtue or Louise Hay, or, Scott Alexander, or, someone that was published and that was an author that was known. It couldn't possibly be coming from me, because I'm still working this all out and I don't know very much about it. So
I think that's part of our life, isn't it? I think the day that you say you know everything is the day that you may as well just, the value in life is learning, and we can all learn so much from each other. And I know with these shows, not only the authors like yourself, Lena, but also with our viewers that come on and have their input, which is so important with our shows. It's like we all learn from each other, and and just listening to somebody's story like yours, where you really did surrender to that intuition that said to you, there's more here, and that's not an easy thing to do. And I think many of those that are listening today will probably have a light bulb moment with that, to go, I'm getting that, but maybe you're not listening. And Lena's here to say, hey, this is what can come out of you listening to that inner guidance and trusting what is coming through for you, because quite often that will be, your inner guidance that's saying, hey, you need to be doing this. And, for all of us, we've got Monica and Francis on this morning. G'day, everybody. And, I think it's very relative, that message for many of us.
Yes, I think, it's not something that you sort of learn and then suddenly, because we're human, that you sort of learn and then that becomes part of your journey. Like I'm finding at the moment I need to get myself back on track. And I think I mentioned to you earlier, I'm not sure if I've mentioned while we're live, but for me during the lockdown, because I was sort of working for part of it, and then we had weeks where I was at home, and I decided to sort of to get online and do an art class. And I found somebody that's an Australian lady called Tracy Verdugo, and she's a really lovely lady. She's in New South Wales somewhere, and she does an online course. And so I started playing with it. She's very much abstract, and sort of tries to encourage you to get back in touch with yourself. And I found that was my way of getting back in touch again with my creative side, my expression of self, and trying to find my authentic self, like trying to get that balance back. Because it was trying to find that balance between what was happening outside and what was happening inside, and having a few freak out moments, and then trying to deal with sort of going into work and dealing with that sort of as well. And I found that I've gone back to my art for self-expression. And what that's reminded me of is somebody that I didn't know from a bar of soap one day came into my store when I was still in business, and they'd said to me, so what makes your boat float, in the course of a conversation? And I couldn't answer. I couldn't think of, firstly, I didn't know what that meant, which was really bizarre, but I hadn't come across that particular turn of phrase before. And I said, I don't really know what you mean, but I'm really going to have to think about that, because it's really going to stay with me. And I did. And it was sort of near Christmas time. And over that Christmas, I remember sitting down and actually meditating on that and thinking, what does that mean? What's my passion? Where am I heading? What is it that I really enjoy doing? And I got those three things that I was talking about: the teaching, the writing, and the painting. And that sort of started off the journey of exploring it more. And I remember when it got to the stage of looking, because I kept getting the nudge, this wasn't going away. I had 6 months in the transition from selling my business to moving down towards the sea and having a sea change, where I was also at a stage where my dad had passed, and I was grieving his passing, and I was grieving the passing of my shop, and I was grieving also. There was a bit of a difficult situation with everything that comes with someone passing, and family and the rest of it. I got back onto my cards and finishing the cards, and adding the verse that needed to be there, and taking out things that weren't right, and I started getting nudges about, you need to share these further. These need to be shared with people, because they're experiences that happen in everybody's life, and it's there's wealth within our hearts in each person that we share daily, and we don't understand that we are connecting with people in that way. And there's an evolution that happens with us when we get a chance to do that. And there's a generosity of spirit that's reciprocal with other people when we can share part of our own, and when we're able to, in whatever way. And we all do it in different ways, and we have to find what makes our boat float.
I love that. It's great.
Yeah, it's a great term. And I've got to say, I'm not someone that gets in a boat easily, so that's why it was difficult for me because I sink really well, but I don't swim at all. So for me, water, I love being near the water. It's my inspiration. I've been painting dolphins since before I came down by the sea, and I'm looking out for them symbolically because that's my cherry on the top of the cake. But yeah, it's great if you can just sit down in a quiet space and just do what you feel makes you happy. And if you can take that out and have it as a little bit of a safe place to go when you need to go inwardly. And for me, the journal writing is something that I didn't really use a lot unless I was in the classroom and I was teaching, and I was using it as an inspiration for kids and writing. To get them started, and that's another way actually that people can use my cards. They can use them as like pull a card for the day, and I pulled a couple for today actually just to see where we were going. I actually pulled a couple of cards I didn't mention earlier, and the three cards that I got, I got number 6, which was generosity. And the message on that one is be kind and generous with your love, for it will outlast all fears and uncertainties. You deserve to glow. And with that, it's sort of talking about, if you don't mind me sort of just explaining that a little bit, is that all right?
I love it.
So that particular one, and I just want to say to people too, when they're using my cards, a couple of things. The numerology is really significant. So the number on the card, I actually had to say to Trudy at the time when we were sort of in the throes of like going through the manuscript and how they and also the design. She asked me to give the cards a title, which was another step that I needed to go through and actually think, what's the title for the card? And I asked if I could also have the number. And at the time, it was one or the other. And I had to sort of say, look, I need to keep the numbers on the cards because the numbers that have actually, how they've been placed in order of numbers is significant because the number actually means something with the meaning of the card. So number 6 to me has always meant something to do with relationships, and it's also in the tarot as well. I think when you look at it, it's the Lover's card, and to me that's a connection of like whole, being in the wholeness of yourself, being in your authentic self, because if we're fully in our divine masculine and feminine, and that's whole, then we're happy with ourselves and who we are, and we have self-acceptance. And it's also that initial pure love that we have as a baby, you know, when we're born, when nobody's taught us anything and nobody's and we haven't gone through, you know, like the roller coaster of life. It's just pure glow of love. And when you're in that essence, and I think we get that when we meditate as well, that's the place to be from. If you could be in that space when you're dealing with the hardships that you have around you, just take a chance to breathe and reconnect with your inner self and look at things from a different perspective, from a perspective, pardon me, of like unconditional love. You see things a bit differently. And if you were giving a message to yourself going through a difficult time with unconditional love in your heart, what would you say to that self? You know, how would you come about it? So that was that message. So I hope that's okay to share the other one that I got as well, which was Heart Evolution. So that one's number 24. And
wow, so it goes back to a 6 as well.
It goes back to a 6 as well. Exactly. Wow. So it's really quite interesting to look at the numbers. And if you look at the smaller numbers, the 2 and the 4, the 4 is always to me one of stability and sort of bringing in those foundations and again allowing yourself to find what's the security, what's the safeness that you feel, you know, in within yourself. Where do you feel safe? And I think we always feel safe sort of within our heart and always feeling like we're loved, and within family or within you know, a relationship, an unconditional relationship. And the 2 to me is always like that sort of choice. choice and also of balance. To me, it reminds me the two of the high priestess in the tarot, where you've got your choices to make. There's always obstacles that might be there, and there's always like the choice of how we're going to recover from that. What are we going to learn from those obstacles, and coming back to balance. And the message on this one is evolution of the heart creates a compassionate soul. Allow your heart to sing and your soul to rise with the sun each day. And by doing that, we're allowing ourselves to grow. And then I thought I'll just pick one that might sum up for the day. And what I got was number 38, which is heart wealth. And again, it sort of leads us back to the heart. And it sort of says, be open to receiving the wealth of the heart, for it is there for the taking. Many find it elusive and very few find it at all. So to me, again, the 3 and the 8 go back to an 11, which is, again, balance. And it's sort of about going inwardly and bringing that balance again. So again, be true to yourself. Listen to what your heart says to you, and connect with your heart and mind, and find that space where there's balance. And again, go back to journaling, write down, download, and then go back and read it down the track and see what were the messages that came.
Beautiful. I think we can all take a bit away from that card, or all of them, really. They're very relevant. And I think at the moment too, because I've noticed that, there's been a lot of, I know even for me personally, it's about digging deep at the moment and kind of identifying what doesn't serve us anymore. So I feel like there's been a lot of people that, as well as myself, that are feeling tested at the moment and need to be reminded to keep the faith and to trust in your heart space and within those messages, to say it will be okay. We've just got to ride through this, bit of a challenge.
That's so true, because I've sort of been doing some little writings myself, and what I've discovered through the process is that, and it sort of came about actually after I did the Reiki, the Reiki 1. I was one of those people that wasn't pushed to actually go and do Reiki 2 or any further immediately. Some people sort of need to do one certificate on top of the other. And it was really funny. I needed to sit with it for a while and to actually experience the Reiki for myself and to bring it into my life. And as I mentioned, I had my mum that was ailing, so I actually used it on her. But what it did do was it opened up like a quietness in my mind. And when I need to connect with that, I'll do a quiet meditation or say a quiet prayer, light a candle, hold my my crystals in my hand, like my rose quartz and a grounding one, like a jasper, and then have a bit of a write and trust that what I'm getting is like from my higher self, rather than having that niggling voice saying in there, now, is that spirit? Is that me? Am I just making this up? Is it my imagination? That's the skeptic coming in. I just let that go and I just write. And interestingly enough, over the past few weeks where I've had a bit of a write, the messages that have been coming through are exactly that. It's like, don't sit there and listen to everything that's coming, through the media, through social media, through conversations that are divisive, through, following like the fears that you might be feeling. In actual fact, go back to the tools that you feel comfortable with, that you've used in the past, that have felt right when things are going smoothly. Bring them back into your life now that things are really, unsettled, and work with those, and just be in the present moment with those tools. Like for example, the heart song cards. They're a great little thing to have in your toolkit. They are sort of grounded, but they're also connecting with spirit. And I have Reiki'd every deck. So when I received them, they actually landed on my doorstep. They were delayed in coming, and they were delayed sort of, a good nearly a month. So I wasn't really sure when I was getting them. And Trudy got sick of hearing from me about when are they arriving, because I'd like to organise a launch, and when are they arriving because I'd like to organise to to celebrate with friends and family and da-da-da. And I got the message on my 60th birthday, the truck backed up, and the guy came to me and he said, "Oh, I've got a parcel for you." And I said, "Oh, what is it?" And he goes, "Oh, it's come from, such and such a place, and there's a big load of boxes for you." And I thought, oh gosh. So to me, that was like spirit saying, another symbol, you're meant to be doing this, because I was still uncertain, meant to be doing this, and they're meant to be here, and you're meant to be sharing them. It was just acknowledgement, acknowledgement, acknowledgement. So to me, they're a little toolkit that are quite grounded, but also quite connected, and they give us messages to sort of follow that are pretty straightforward. And if the message on the card is a little bit more like poetry, because some of them were a little bit more comprehensive, the little interpretations that I've done in the guidebook, I actually meditated on each card and was given a message from Spirit to interpret for my readers, because it'd taken such a long time to put the whole package together, that might make a little bit more sense. You can dip into the guidebook and get a message that might make a little bit more sense than the card does if it's not resonating immediately. So, but all the messages have been: stay grounded, stay in your authentic self. Don't get tangled up with the fear that's around you, and try and stand above on a mountain peak and look down from that perspective, and look at what messages would you give yourself, what messages would you give your friends, being disconnected from the emotion and actually looking at a way of working through the obstacles and the uncertainty.
Beautiful. That's so cool. And we need to be reminded of this. It's simple things that we go through life forgetting about, isn't it, really?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's it. Keep it simple. Keep it simple, and use the things you're comfortable with. And and if you're not feeling that you're connecting in that way, connect with nature. And if you don't feel you're connecting with nature, connect with your artwork. Find the way that you express yourself and go back to that, because that brings you some comfort when you're familiar with it too.
Brilliant. And we were talking about that just prior to coming on, about how being creative, I mean, we've all got a creative side. Like, you get sometimes people say, "Oh, I'm not creative," and it's like, yes, we all have no matter what it is, there's a form of creation within us, isn't there, that we can tap into.
Exactly right. And can I it's just reminded me of something, the story painting that I'm doing at the moment. The class is called Story Painting, and we're sort of using different keepsakes and memories and so forth to bring together sort of little projects. But one of the things that and I'll give a shout out, Tracy Verdugo. She's a lovely person in New South Wales. I think she said she's in Jervis Bay, and she's doing these amazing classes that are allowing people to reconnect with their creativity. But one thing she was talking about in one of the lives that she did was about art scars. And I think that goes across to, like, that terminology goes to, like, self-expression scars, because whatever we have, or creativity scars, because whatever we find, and this is looking at it from a personal experience just recently, whatever we have found in the past that we could express ourselves through, whichever avenue, there's always some sort of a little glitch that's happened along the way, whether it be at 5 or at 15 or at 25 or 65, where it stopped us from actually enjoying it. And if we can identify what that was that stopped us, and we can work through it by putting it aside and saying, you know what, that was one person that said that didn't connect, or that was somebody that maybe, was doing something else that and my self-expression wasn't connecting with them, or didn't speak to them. It might speak to others. And if it speaks to you and it makes your boat float, that saying again, why not do it again? Why just not let go of like the naysayers and the negativity, and just give it a go. And that was sort of what happened with my artwork prior to this, like about 20 years ago now, where I thought, you know what, I can just paint for me. I don't have to do an exhibition. I don't have to show anybody. These can just be sitting in my lounge room, sitting in my garage, sitting on my wall or not, and that's what I started doing. The Heart Songs painting that I've done, it's called Sacred Union, and there are sort of, I think I was mentioning before, like symbology within that, as I discovered, and it was actually healing my heart when I was going through difficulties, as I discovered. And when I put it up in my shop, when I had a shop, or in my workshops when I was doing those as a meditation piece, everybody would say there was something that spoke to them. And it happened with a few other pieces of artwork too, of Archangel Michael. I had done one, and another one of an angel where you see the back of the angel wings, and one wing's painted in rainbow colours and the other wing was just in white, and it's floating up in the sky, in the clouds. And I kept going back to it to add some colour, and I just couldn't paint anymore. It's because I paint intuitively normally, and when it comes to a stop, it comes to a stop. It's almost like when you're channeling sort of, or automatic writing. When it stops, it stops. When you're writing, you're just downloading. And I couldn't paint colour on the other wing. And what I discovered was, when I looked at it, was that I had had an injury in my right shoulder and I hadn't been able to use it because I had a frozen shoulder. And when I started to paint intuitively, I started to paint on this. It was like a rough sketch of how to do, a rough painting of how to do clouds. And I wasn't going to use it anymore. And I thought, I'll just pull it out and use my paintbrush and start painting and see what happens on top of this. It's just a rough draft. And what happened was the outlining wings of an angel, and all you could see was the back torso. And when I looked at it, because I was looking at it from the back, I thought, that's really weird, because the wing, which is my right side, my right shoulder, has got all these beautiful rainbow colours going through it. And while I was painting it, I was actually feeling a warmth going through my right shoulder. So I was actually feeling healing happening at the same time, every time I picked up the brush to go back to it. And that's what I had people telling me about other paintings that I started to put up. And around my shop at the time, and others that have been seen in the memoir. And I thought, you know what, if it works for some, that's great. And if it's working for me, that's great. It doesn't need to be something that I have to get approval from. And so I try and go with that now, and not have the self-critic in there.
And it's such a it is such a human thing, isn't it? I know for me, getting back into art, it's like you're looking. I kept looking with the artwork that I was doing, going, oh, it's not finished yet. I used to keep saying to myself, it's not finished yet, but it was really me looking at it, going, I don't think it's good enough, and I need to go back. Whereas in actual fact, my inner guidance was like, that's done. And I actually had a friend who was an artist come along, and she said, no, do not touch them. Like, they are great as they are. And I didn't realize. I went, I just thought, because like you say, our humanness goes, well, that's not quite exact, or that doesn't, something about that doesn't look right, because I'm judging it from a point of it needs to look in a certain way, rather than just allowing what that was to come through and trust that it would be okay as it was.
Exactly. And I think you get that feeling, because when you look at it, I don't know about you, but when I look at it, I usually feel something if I need to keep adding to it, or if I feel nothing now, I learn to trust that that's it. That's finished. So
yeah, I can relate to that. Yeah. It is. No, absolutely. And it's about getting out of our head and just going, it's done. It is okay.
Exactly
it's
right.
fine.
Exactly right. And what I found to help me with that is I just put, if I haven't got a CD handy, I'll just put Spotify on, and I'll just put some instrumental music or classical music in the background, and I'll just sit and meditate for a minute and just sort of say, what colours am I going to use today, for example, if I'm painting, and I'll pick out 2 or 3 colours. 4 or 5 colours, but it'll be a certain limited amount. And then I'll pick up a brush, and I don't know, it might be a different shape, like a fan shape instead of a square shape brush, and I'll pick out the canvas, and it's all quite intuitive. I'll just go with it, and then when I'm ready, I'll just use those, and I'll just start painting. I'll have no outline on the canvas. It'll just be starting to paint. And when I'm in the zone, I'll just paint for as long as I feel like I'm in the zone, and it's like I'm transported somewhere else. So sometimes it's things that I've actually seen while I've done a quick meditation, and sometimes it might be a meditation that's come back from somewhere, or it might be there's no rhyme nor reason. So we just have to learn to go with it and try and embrace that moment and enjoy that moment of joy.
Yeah. Beautiful. And everyone's got a shop, like with art supplies. You've got your $2 shops even that have like extensive like oil paints and brushes and things in it now. So maybe out of this show, for those of you that are listening today, be encouraged to get some color into your life. Get whether it's a canvas or a notepad, and get creative and see what comes up for you, because it really as Lena and I were chatting about prior to the show, it's been great for, going through what we've been through this year. I think adding that bit of colour and getting a bit creative is something that we can really look at as a benefit from everything that's happening.
Yeah, and also like having the cards, and obviously we're talking about the cards. Use these as inspirational verse, to be creative from. So just pick a card that you like. Like if I shuffle one now and pick one, for example, something that you can sit and meditate on, and use that as your meditation. So if I just fan them out and choose a card for us now, I got enlightenment, which is number 2. So you can sit and teachers can use this with children in their classroom. Like for example, senior levels or middle school levels, doing creative writing. For little ones, you could probably choose the cards, and the teachers might need to interpret it and tell the story. Perhaps they could use the guidebook. I know that I have had my yoga teacher uses the cards, and she asks the group to choose a card, and then go with that as the focus for the card for the reading. So there's many different ways of using these as well, apart from doing readings for yourself, where you lay them out or choose a card to do a reading. And also one of our other co-authors too, Beck Campbell, who's also a psychic, has been using them lately on her show, and she's been using them for readings for people. So there's a lot of different ways of using these. But number 2 tells us, as a card for today, light your way every day with your light heart filled with thoughts of kindness, love, and enhancement. The simple things that instill understanding, compassion, and grace. Which sort of is saying pretty much for everything that we've been talking about, hasn't it? So
I love that.
Never seems to surprise me, not to surprise me when that happens.
No, that's awesome. And Jacinta's put here, sounds great for inclusion when working with children. Perfect. Would be great.
That's great.
Card deck, the card deck would be amazing for that.
Yeah, so if people are interested, they're available obviously at Animal Dreaming Publishing, and if you're in Victoria, because of the post, I've actually got them on my website too. If you don't mind, can I mention that to people?
Of course. And add the link too, Lena. Once we're finished here, please feel free to add your link onto the post. So those
I might get your help with that, but yeah, I can do that. So it's a little bit different to sort of my name and the name of the cards. So it's www.awakeningsonline.com.au, and my Instagram and my Facebook pages are heartsongs.awakenings. So from time to time, I've got on my website, there's a blog page which I had a little bit of a rest from, but I'll sort of be getting back to. I was sort of doing weekly wisdoms where I sort of pull cards that are relevant to the week, and I'll do a bit of interpretation. So for people to just sort of see a different interpretation on what's in the guidebooks for the cards, just for the week and how they apply to that as well. But people feel free to sort of contact me if you want to and ask me about them, and happy to chat to people.
Absolutely, and we will share. There is links, I know, on the top of this page, and I'm just putting in here awakeningsonline.com.au. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Perfect. I'll post that on the feed for those that want to check that out. We will that will come up in the feed. But please connect with Lena and her amazing cards, and I guarantee you, I've got them sitting here. With me at the moment, and they're really powerful, and the messages are so needed right now. I feel like they're so relevant to everyone. At this time of year, we're starting to build up to being a little bit busy, and it's a nice reminder to connect back to our heart space. It's beautiful. So thank you so much, Lena, for joining us today. It's been great fun, and we've loved sharing your cards and messages. We've had so many that have commented and I've appreciated you sharing all your knowledge with us and your inspiration, because there's so many authors here listening to the show that I know connect with us weekly that have a story within them. And I think, the way that you described your journey and how your cards came about is a definite inspiration to many of us. So thank you so much for coming on our show today.
Thank you. My pleasure, and thanks for helping me get over yet another another sort of fear, or as far as like doing this live. So I'm public speaking. Yeah. So that's great for me too.
I was just going to say you have certainly rocked it. So no one would have ever guessed you have a problem with that.
It probably helps that I don't see all the faces in the background, Tonia. So thank you. Thanks for your encouragement.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. Thanks, Francis. You're one of our regulars. Really appreciate you connecting, and Gabrielle and the rest of you that have connected with us today. And we'll be back next Tuesday. So thank you all. Have a wonderful week and weekend.
All. I appreciate it. Thank you.